All right, so we are right back with the panel discussion that I said would be on transforming manufacturing with data management. So some keen insights awaiting your attention, ladies and gentlemen. This will be about redesigning the decision-making process, leveraging the real-time data availability, using AI in the industrial processes, managing the increasingly empowered employees, and to also creating the rightmost strategies for transparent operational process. Well, this may be just the tip of the iceberg. Of course, we'll be exploring and probing more. So allow me to please warmly welcome our panel. Let's welcome Arup Choudhury, the CIO, Eveready Industries, India. Let's also welcome Ajay Chawla, the head IT and Infosec STL. We'll also be joined by in the panel with Kapil, the head IT United Breweries. We also have with us Manjunath Prasad, the head IT infrastructure, TVS and Sons. Well, the panel would also be graced with the presence of Mayuresh Purandare, the head IT infrastructure and cybersecurity, Marico. Well, Namrita Mahindro, CTO chemicals, filaments and insulators sector from Aditya Birla Group would also be joining us. We would also be joined by, so let's welcome Pradeep Seshadri, the Director Sales Engineering India and SAARC from Commvault. Well, the contours of this particular discussion would be held together by our moderator, Soumyadeep Ganguly, partner, McKinsey and Company. So with that, Mr. Ganguly, wishing you and the panel a very fine morning with us at the Digital League and request you to please take charge.
Thank you, Sikha, and good morning to everyone. First of all, it's a pleasure to hold a panel discussion with such empowered panelists. I think the topic is the topic of the hour, right? How do we actually transform manufacturing with data, while Indian manufacturing probably is in the leap of taking the next S-curve and showing the world how you can do manufacturing in a better way. Let me start with the first theme of where we are intertwined with the pandemic, right? And let me go to Arup to start with you. That the theme of the pandemic has really changed the way people are using data to manage manufacturing. Right now, you come from an industry which is a lot of intertwining manufacturing dependency. Let me come to you with the first thing. How do you see that data transforming manufacturing? How pandemic has really changed the entire equation?
Yeah, you see, just to start off with, around 1.5 years back, when things were normal, sales were happening through normal regular channels. Okay, now with the pandemic coming in, we had to open up omni-channel for trade, because touch points in the market were reducing a lot. So customer interactions were now starting to get virtual, and taking orders, deliveries, these things also started getting haywire. That is where we had to embark on a journey of quickly getting into an omni-channel mode to satisfy our customers, and with the omni-channel mode opening up, a huge volume of data started coming in, and data cleaning was becoming a major issue. Data version control was becoming a major issue, because now people were editing data from the cloud, from the systems in-house, or from their mobile phones. So multiple channels of data coming in, data cleaning and data sanctity was something that we had to embark upon a journey to make meaningful insights from the data that we are getting from the market and also from the factories. So this is where our challenge came in, and we had to quickly get into a data management mode very fast to actually churn out the proper insights out of this data.
So very well said, Arup, right? That the world suddenly changed, suddenly omni-channel and online transactions started coming in, and completely this data management itself become a huge challenge. Let me just pose the same question to you, Namrita. You come from a very different sector, chemicals, not a B2B business. How did you see your sector, or from your organization perspective, actually handle this?
Thanks, Soumyadeep. So let me take a slightly different perspective of what happens behind the scenes. So when you look at it from a business planning point of view, I think what became very apparent to us was that while we had an integrated business planning management, tool in place. But the kind of scenario planning that you needed to do, the kind of forecasting that you needed to do was far more agile than we had done ever before. So the need to look at integrated business planning, from a very holistic perspective, from a very agile perspective, became, the need of the hour. So I think that was one change which came into place. From a point of view of looking at production planning, looking at the forecasting, the demand sensing. We've got 20 different plants across 5 different geographies. And then you have hundreds of SKUs for each of these. So to make sure that we were being able to do the right kind of production planning, because chemicals was and is an essential commodity. So we did not really shut down despite the COVID scenario, but the need to plan a lot better became an imperative for us. I think the second perspective that I would share is from a point of view of just looking at smart manufacturing. And while this has lesser to do with the COVID, and was something which was in the offing anyway, I think one of the things that we've seen over the last 2 years is really going from pilots to scale, in terms of seeing how we can scale, our initiatives around creating a better, more reliable kind of, operation for ourselves. So if I look at it from a maintenance point of view, where typically you would have scheduled maintenances within organizations, you now started using IIoT, and you started taking that sensor data to start predicting in some senses, what is the performance level of the various equipment. Are they at peak performance levels, or at optimal performance levels at all times? The second aspect was, where you were having breakdowns, especially with critical equipments. Again, the need to observe this data to, then manage this data from a perspective of saying that if you are getting signals which are giving you some warning signs, how do you start looking at that and doing that at scale across all the plants, as opposed to doing it, for a set number of equipments or across just 1 or 2 plants. And I guess the third and the last piece was really around, the whole supply chain disruption which happened. And that is something that, anybody who's in manufacturing has felt that big time. So we had a control tower in place, but I think the need to create, again, just a lot more transparency across the entire ecosystem became an imperative. And for that, the data which was coming from, whether it was on-road trucks that we had, which were carrying chemicals, which can be hazardous. So, making sure that you had the right kind of data coming in real time, so that you could track these and get them to a safe haven during the COVID times. Similarly, from a health and safety point of view, given the COVID norms that had come into play, getting those adjusted back into the control tower and starting to monitor for that, and automating this entire with, a no-touch, low-touch environment that we have gone into, even for our, truck drivers, even for our people who are in the plants, ensuring that, we can get data by using technologies to ensure that there is the social distancing which is being maintained, and the entire process is being automated, so that, the human intervention is minimized to the largest possible extent. So I'll take a pause with that because I know
very well said, Namrita. Right, there was an integrated planning, integrated business planning. You talked about smart manufacturing, lower manpower but higher productivity. We all know that how the industry got disrupted, and you also talked about that how this entire control tower creating transparency from demand to manufacturing to dispatch to procurement. I think very, very well put. Let me switch the gear to a very different type of industry. So Manjunath, you represent a very different industry. How did you see the transition happened of using data for manufacturing and supply chain during this period, and how pandemic has impacted?
Well, thanks, Mohammed, for the question. For us, it was a totally different kind of issue what we had. For us, the way what we work is purely on the ground service. Prior to the pandemic, we had the data within the office network, within the organization. But post-pandemic, we can see that it was a vice versa, where 80% of the data used to come from the outside world, where people used to work from home and they tried to access the data from their work from home locations. So it just turned around the table. So that is one of the challenges what we had. And second thing, with all the lot of digital solutions push, the sources of data has also increased enormously. We are giving us thinking about the planning of getting it more integrated, more security-oriented data exchanges. So those things were the focus that had to be planned for us. So that gave a digital push during this pandemic. That's what I would like to say about these two things.
Well put. Before I move on to the next theme, I just want to have some reaction from you, Pal, because you represent an industry which have seen probably the maximum amount of disruptions, right? We have seen the long queues when in front of the shops and all. How did your industry actually adjusted or adapted to this change?
Well, it was I would say a paradigm shift. I joined, for me, it was a major, I would say came as a boost for what changes I wanted to do in the organization, because I had joined that time, pretty much moving into organization just 2 days before the Janta curfew and everything happened, and I was managing everything from a hotel. And how do you ensure manufacturing is happening? There was almost 200 crores worth of beer lying in the barrels, which could not be packed, because nobody could go to work. And it being a traditional business, this is a government controlled, excise controlled business. Since the constitution was made, you've heard a word called Theka, that means it is all controlled by government. So it's a B2B business. So how it's getting sold is all controlled. So you must have seen some Swiggies or some stuff happening in the north, but that was also through those government outlets. But how do you manufacture from anywhere, That was the first need that happened all of a sudden, that people, so VPNs and those kind of solutions were definitely put in immediately and collaborative platforms, which I would have taken 3 years to ensure people that they work differently. Coming from Lafarge Holcim, which is the world's largest cement company, managing entire APAC, 9 countries, ACC Ambuja Cement in India, 25,000 crores turnover just in India itself. It was a paradigm shift for me itself to see work happening so differently. But all of a sudden, it was changed in 8 days of changing everything from a hotel, launching collaborative platforms. And the same people who said, we work differently had a different need altogether, So, and then eventually there was a need for people to do manufacturing from wherever they are, to control, especially not just the hands and feet, but there are a lot of other things that happen, which can happen from anywhere, So that plus the automation need, like Namrita was actually talking about, increase, How do you ensure certain things can happen from anywhere? You put in more automation, so that gradually increased. And that actually brought in much more need for higher data management needs, and the volume of data obviously increased quite a bit. And how do you handle that? So we actually moved our environment into even moved the data center onto a managed location, moved into a hybrid solution, which and both for DC and DR, those kind of moves also happen, larger moves, to ensure that organization works towards a highly available and secure environment, So data management became a key. The solution to have it on hybrid, to have stuff on cloud and manage much more was immediately needed. And it took almost 5-6 months to plan out, reach there. But that entire year was a lot of rework, which would have happened probably in 3 years' time, So, but it all started with working from wherever you are, and that was a need, and having that to much larger unstructured and structured data both, because logistics, like you're selling that, you have to track more, you have to see where they are. There are disruptions, but beer has to reach, So you're saying that there were queues, but at the same time, how was it reaching the market? That was a major logistical nightmare, The truckers were not available, people were not available. How do you track them? Third party, different guys, Put some solutions there. So all of a sudden, whatever was running had to be redone,
Yeah.
I think
Very well put, Kapil. And the way, look, the common thread I'm taking from what all of you are saying is that there were 3-4 major themes in terms of smart manufacturing, in terms of very integrated planning, in terms of transparency, and in terms of creating new solutions which was working and suddenly not started working because people cannot go in presence. But one of the common thread I'm picking up is that there was a bit of a change management within the organization, the way people are working. And that leads me to segue to the second theme I wanted to talk about, that when people are using data for transformation, what are some of the critical things the organization should be ready with? Mayuresh, let me come to you, that from an organization which probably takes a lot of leaps in terms of technology, how do you see organizations should ready themselves to take a leap of data managed manufacturing transformation?
Right. So I would like to touch upon a little different side of the data. So, like, most of the panelists, we actually discussed about the data which is needed for the supply chain planning, integrated business planning, and that is very important, right? But in Marico, we also did something different, which is mainly if you see the new product launches. So during the pandemic, we actually launched a lot of new products. Now that actually changed the requirement of the a different manufacturing is needed, right? Because earlier we used to take like 2 years to launch a product, and now we have to change that to maybe 2 months, right? So how do you first of all do the R&D, do the testing, find out the people who can manufacture at different locations with the same quality, and then establish a supply chain. So if you see, these are the different things because of the pandemic we had to do, and only thing to iron these all things out and put them together is the right data management, right? So as Mr. Pal rightly mentioned, the collaboration was important. So putting everyone together, because there's a new product development team, there's a supply chain team, there's a people who are hunting for the plants and all the geographies that who can manufacture those things. So all of them need to collaborate. All of that collaboration has to be secured because there are new launches which are happening, and they need to be kept secured and not disclosed until they're launched, right? And then how do we do the integrated business planning, as Namrita said? So all of these were key imperative, and connecting that back into the what customer needs and how do we deliver those things, right? So all of these things, when we join together, that created the entire requirement to manufacturing planning.
So that's very, very well put, Mayuresh, right? So there is a very different set of data from a new product launch, right? Let me come to you, Ajay, right? You come from a very different industry again, and that's the beauty of this panel. That how did you see this journey, and also what are some of the things organizations need to keep in mind as they embark on this journey?
Sure. Thank you, Soumyadeep. I think it's been a very interesting discussion on various industries talking, how they handled during COVID times and before. Let me talk about, from a discussion yesterday I was having with the CEO of the optical fiber manufacturing business unit. So because we are all into the network related areas, including the optical fiber and optical fiber cable manufacturing and many other optical interconnects products. Now, during this COVID times, as you would have seen, we are all doing these sessions and panel discussions, which used to happen all face to face, in person, with the whole audience in front of us, and now we are sitting here where the live audience is also watching us, obviously digitally. Now, this whole thing triggered that bandwidth consumption. We were in the telecom business. The operations were kept as telecom. The idea was that the operations should be running even during the first lockdown, which happened March onwards, right? And that's where I talk about from a data point of view, and then I'll talk about the point which you touched upon, why the organization, what are the things which organization need to be doing for it to be ready and sustain that change. Right? It's okay to initiate things and then it goes down the line. So I was talking about that CEO discussion. The point there was that it went back to the basic thing of master data management, right? From an optical fiber manufacturing perspective, where there are different finished goods, how do you manage, again, going back to the basics of master data, right? If that is clean enough, is that unique enough? Is that, I am able to connect all the dots starting from the master to up to the, data visualization, all driving from making sure that as basic thing as data masters are managed well and managed well through policies and processes so that it is sustainable. So Soumyadeep, that's where the picture comes in, that when the people were not there during the COVID times, how we were managing the work, the maximum production. The production was peaking because the demand was there, and it is continuing to be there as we are sustaining through this, the bandwidth utilization and moving towards 5G, where, STL again is into the FTTX and 5G manufacturing products. In all these, we needed the labor force, which had to be working with minimal capacity because many of them had, gone back home or were not available. So, we having that data of the skill set of the individuals and the adjoining skill set through the value stream mapping, we were able to interplay with that. A person is there, can, a team of 4 which was there, can it be done, brought down to 3, and then that 4th person moves to the adjoining process area. Again, we take data for granted, but that is where the data power of, having that data with the skill set matching for that particular process helped us to take those decisions quickly. So the need of the quality of data, how it is represented. So I spoke about the creation, I spoke about the the utilization part of it, and now the from everybody talks about decision support, right? With this IIoT being in play and the IT/OT paradigm, right? OT is no longer a place which is kept hidden. It is as much in front in the world available as IT data is. When you're talking about that, recently we put in a IoT platform where within 9 days we were able to pull out data of around 130 tags at this point of time for each machine, almost creating for me, the journey of digital twin. This data representation is giving me so much insight into how the plant is running. That it's clearly the data itself is giving me a lot of use cases, and for the plant, obviously the plant operations, plant head play a big role in adopting these technologies. But this data and its representation is helping us make a lot of decisions here. So it all brings down to from an organization point of view, how do you do this top down? There is a sponsor for it from a data management point of view. There are data governance policies. There are data registers which are maintained, because on that then comes the data security, right? Because I have to interplay all my DLPs and the firewalls, all based on the data register largely, and also from the data coming in from the endpoints and the server points and the machines now. So, nutshell, if I talk about from a data creation, why that master data comes into play, data management, the utilization case, which I spoke about, and obviously the decision support system happening both on the IT side as well as on the OT data side. Happy to talk more, but I think at this point, I wanted to just, share these things.
Very, very well put. And I'm sure all of you can talk the whole day on this particular topic. But I think very well put. Let me just take a step back and see the points all of you have mentioned so far, right? The power of data is very, very well established. The governance is very well established. Transparency is well established. I think, Ajay, you touched upon a very important point on security, right? And how the IT, OT layer are getting meshed up. And there are hybrid IT and all. And we can't have a better person than Pradeep to come to you, that how people should think about this entire security in a world where IT, OT is getting more and more integrated and so on and so forth. Would love to hear your comments on this particular theme.
Soumyadeep, thank you so much. Been a privilege to be part of this panel. Some great learnings here for myself and good insights being shared by fellow panelists. So yeah, first things first, I've been using this term now, data is a new currency. You have data and good quality data. That's the wealth and richness that one can talk about, especially in an enterprise. So no two things about that. What I'll do is the next couple of minutes talk about 3 things. One is the trends that we see coming from the supplier side in the industry, with this being the supplier of a technology data management platform. What we see today as trends, some of the challenges and solutions that we have been working with our customers in the manufacturing segment, and how we can help mitigate those. So from a trend perspective, absolutely. And I agree with, I think, every panelist who just spoke so far, that volume of data has drastically increased. And over over the last year, if I see, it is not just a cultural shift, it's not just a technological shift, but the rate of innovation has probably been the highest ever in the industry in terms of technology innovations. Because I really have a lot of respect for the panel here, because they are the data owners. And I think everybody was caught unawares or without warning and suddenly had to devise a strategy to handle that ever incessant data that was flowing in. There was there was no, it was not an option. So one had to react quickly, and great job done on that one. And I really, I've seen many customers, spoken to them. The kind of new ideas that came out, phenomenal. I think that's one of the things. Another thing is the cloud adoption, right? So everything now is a cloud-first strategy. When we talk to CIOs, when we talk to the VPs of IT and the executive management and customers, they look at why not cloud-first. Traditional, enterprises, which could be from an FSI or manufacturing, everybody now is looking at why not cloud-first, and that's another trend that we see. But is it only cloud? No. I think it is going to be a hybrid world for the next few years at least, because if I look at manufacturing as a sector, the SAP, it could be the SAP installs, it could be the devices that are installed and instrumentation, all the instruments that provide data, and we heard about IoT. All of that is set to be in premise as well as in cloud, both ways. So it's going to be a hybrid world from that point of view. And other thing that we see is that customers are more moving towards subscription and pay-as-you-go kind of models, because they see that things are changing so fast that you really can't commit yourself to a certain model or certain capex. So OpEx, subscription, and pay-as-you-go, these are some of the new trends that we see from a consumption perspective. Needless to say, backup and DR have held prime importance over the last few months just because of the security threats that are being thrown at data right now. And it is a reality. Enterprises have gone through, many of our customers have gone through data compromises, but have been successfully able to recover. But yeah, backup and DR are now the last lines of defense when it comes to data management. Now, from a challenge perspective, yes, we have a cloud adoption going on, and we see customers moving more and more towards cloud, especially on the Kubernetes side, right? So we see a big uptake on containers. So all the new applications are being tested on containers, mostly in the cloud. Big uptake on messaging systems like O365, Google Workspace, and so on and so forth. So that is what we are looking at from a trends perspective. Now, what are the challenges that we see that enterprises are going through today with all of this? See, one of the things we have to remember is a data is a double-edged sword. I'm sure everybody here agrees. So one is you could use it to either just survive, if the quality is right, it can be used for thriving. An enterprise can thrive with the data if it is used properly. But otherwise, survival becomes a question if data is not handled well. Now, data sprawl is a big challenge that we see, because with the advent of hybrid, multiple clouds, data is everywhere. So the visibility becomes a key thing. When you have visibility, you have control. And that's one thing that we see. And second thing is, there's a presumption that if the data is on cloud, it is protected. I often tell this to customers, and I would like to repeat myself here again. Data being in cloud doesn't mean to say it is protected. Cloud is for a reason. Cloud is for elasticity. Cloud is for, it's a flexible consumption model. Those are the primary uses for cloud. You want something in the next 5 minutes, you get it. You use a credit card, you get it. But the data there, even the cloud provider is very clear that is the owner's responsibility. It's the end user's responsibility. They don't own that data for you. Of course, there are some native tools which are very primitive. They really don't offer what an enterprise would need today. So one has to be a bit careful about that. Last but not the least, siloed tools, right? So siloed tools. Today there's that sometimes it's short-term approach, like, okay, I have a problem today, let me sort it out. Probably it's not in our view whether it is going to solve a long-term problem, covering all the clouds that I would use or everything other infra that I would use. So I think having that silo approach is a bit challenging that we see today, because it adds up into multiple tools, management overheads, and ultimately recoverability becomes a question, because it is hard to figure out which tool actually has what data when you need it in time. And I think Namrita mentioned this. Today we see customers demanding data anywhere and everywhere. You want it in the same form. It could be in the cloud, on-premise, different site, doesn't matter. But data is required everywhere. That agility and mobility are becoming key trends from data management perspective. Now, from a solution perspective, as a Commvault, as a vendor with a 25 year of experience, our core competency is data management, backup, disaster recovery, archival, and compliance, right? We also help customers maintain their GDPR compliance or any sort of compliance that would come from federal governments while not just surviving, but also thriving with data. So that's our goal. Basically make sure that you are assured that it's a secure platform, your data is in safe hands, and you can recover that whenever you want it, in the shape you want it, in the place you want it. And that's our goal. That's what we work with customers for. And some of the largest enterprises in India, largest tire manufacturers, and basically the largest, one of the largest, brewing giants, they use our products platform to keep their data ready. Now, combine this with what I would look at is that make multi-cloud advantage versus an adversity. Any multi-cloud is a truth anyways. So basically look at DR to cloud, backup to cloud, and use those multiple clouds to have those multiple different copies so that you can recover from any form and anywhere in terms of a calamity. So use it to your advantage. That would be my advice. Have some safe air gap copies. That's the need of the hour, because those are the ones which ultimately come to a rescue when everything else is compromised. Last but not the least, consolidate on a single platform. A platform like Commvault, which can help you not just do endpoints, O365, archival. We can help you with data quality as well. We have intelligence to talk about data quality, whether you can make judgments based on that. And it's a secure platform based on AI and ML, so it keeps the data safe no matter where it is, and very flexible in terms of usage and infrastructure. The one thing that I would like to conclude my view, Soumya, is that backup as a service is a new thing. It's the new kid on the block. We saw this coming up in the last 1.5 years, but today, an enterprise like Commvault with its metallic offering is all there out in the market to help offload our enterprise customers, just offload that part to a leader, Gartner leader like Commvault, who can take up that responsibility off of them and provide them the kind of recoverability they want and good value for money. So with that, I would turn it over to you, Soumya. Those are my views.
Very, very well said, Pradeep, right? And I would say the two things which at least I would keep in my mind is the data is the new currency and backup is the new kid in the block. So we need to nurture it. Look, I have been given the tough job of actually keeping a tag on the time, keeping an eye on the clock. What I would do that. The last theme I wanted to touch upon is that tech transformation versus org transformation, that where do the balance, and I will go to each of the speaker one by one with this theme and the parting thought. I would request you to give it a minute short, right? I know all of us can speak on this for the full day, but let me start with you, Kapil. Tech versus org transformation, how do you see it, and any parting thoughts?
So I would say the transformation goes hand in hand. Everybody talks about digital today, the transformation that's a transformation which is a mindset transformation, especially in an industry like ours. So where everybody has been, like I said, a mindset has been there to work in a particular way. So how does that change? So if you have to transform digitally, you have to actually change the way you market a product, to change the way you manufacture the product, to actually how you look at your supply chain, or looking at the way the product is getting sold, and those things are even being discussed with Government of India. How do you change that? And part of, since we are the largest brewers in the country and the beer manufacturers, we actually have, whenever the discussions happen in various forums, we actually try to provide that inputs to various forums, that how this paradigm shift is needed, and this is the need of the hour, because industry has been behind even in manufacturing space. So that organizational transformation can go hand in hand only when so technology plays a lead role, but I would not say that technology transformation can happen without the organization getting transformed. The first and foremost is the organization transformation, and then comes the tech as a need. That's a solutioning. So that's the reason when you say, okay, if you have a digital transformation happening, that's led by business guys, and a CIO plays a role along with it. Because people thought in organizations, IT head will come and change, he'll put an IoT, he'll put solutions, but business need has to be understood and transformation has to happen together, So organization transformation is predominantly the most important thing today.
Very well said. Organization need and tech becomes enabler. Mayuresh, from your point of view, with new products coming.
So I think organization transformation versus IT transformation, I think it's a chicken and egg story, right? Who comes first, right? But in my view, and the way in which we work in Marico, whether we do any IT transformation, it has to result into a top line or a bottom line benefit, right? So even if, let's say, we're talking about, Pradeep saying based off the backup technology, right? Now, let's say a sales team is least worried about the backups, but at the same time, it is very important for IT. So how do we create a story which translates into a top line or a bottom line benefit is something the role of a CIO or a heads that we have to play and create that story which showcases that it is not only an IT transformation, but it is also a business transformation because there is a business benefit.
Brilliantly said, Mayuresh. Impact back rather than technology forward, and technology actually solves the impact with the people looks at it. Let me come to you, Namrita, for your thoughts here.
Yeah, I think the thought has been captured well. The way I look at it is, in my role as a chief digital officer, there are tech transformations which are happening, there are business transformations which are happening. Tech is definitely an enabler. And in my role, then it is about, translating what would be that business requirement or that business vision that has been set out, and how can tech enable or accelerate that journey of transformation. And when it is vice versa, when tech comes up with something, it's not doing tech for the sake of tech, but taking it to business and saying, does this help solve a problem better, faster, in a manner which creates greater impact. So it's really a very synergistic partnership and a very collaborative, relationship. But having said that, it is typically always business-led, because at the end of the day, tech is there as an enabler for business. So that's the role that I see, moving forward.
Synergistic and collaborative. I think very, very well said, Namrita, that it has to be a tech not for the sake of the tech, but tech for solving the business problem. Pradeep, I know you come from a very different world, but any thoughts from you that how do you see when you go to the customer?
Absolutely. So one of the things, Soumyadeep, is transformation is the truth, right? So we all know that. And I think it's as much as about technology, it's about people as well. So taking people along, enterprises do identify that there are a lot of things that needs to change and that change is ever happening. But keeping in mind that there are people who are also important, human capital is equally important, going hand in hand is very key. I think making sure the human capital is put to right use, take off some of the repetitive tasks, automate as much as possible, and make it easier for them to accept the change so that it becomes a holistic transformation, not just from a technology perspective, but from people's perspective as well. And I think that enablement, that giving that information, I heard Mayuresh speak about that. So I think that's very important. Educate them and tell them it's part of the process and that's something for good for all. So, right. So that is important. In my opinion.
Very, very well said, Pradeep, that tech becomes a problem solving equipment for the people who are on the ground and they wholeheartedly adopt it because it solves their day-to-day life. Let me come to you, Ajay, for your parting thoughts on this.
Sure. I think many valid points already said. So I just, to all the points which were equally relevant. The sustainability of that change, right? Everybody talks about transformation today, but that transformation, how do you make it sustainable? I think if and that's where technology is again, not people talk about cloudification, people talk about data security, people talk about sustained change. I think that all these are working together for any of these things to sustain. I think that change management across the organization, both from a technology perspective and people and org structure, policies, I think they all are important. Soumyadeep, I think from making sure that the change is sustainable, and sustainability is the mantra again. Where manufacturing point of view, it's a very important thing, both from an energy, water consumption, raw material consumption. So I think the paradigm of that sustainability is very, very important, be it data management, be it any other transmission project. So I think one thing to keep in mind, start a thing, but how do you sustain it? Even when that project has gone through a closure, how people are involved, how orgs are structured, that the momentum which has gathered, it continues like a flywheel and keep giving more and more benefits.
Very well said, Ajay, that sustainability at the core, that it's not a one-time spiky effort, but it continually goes and cross the hump. Arup, we started with you, not by design, but by circumstances, I guess. I would love to have your last thought before we conclude this panel discussion.
Yeah, so all speakers have spoken well regarding tech versus org. Just 2 points that I would like to add is, in the org itself, there are certain places where transformation is quicker and certain places where transformation is less quicker. So that is where, IT has to play a role. I mean, IT transformation will have to play a role. Like supposing a marketing team would be more acceptable to transformation rather than a back office team. So that is where IT has to play a leading role in terms of, how to take these guys on to transform the organization and get the low-hanging fruits. Once the low-hanging fruits are got, then management automatically becomes involved in transforming the entire organization. So that is my take on this.
No, brilliantly said, everyone. I know for the paucity of time, I think we are just hitting the clock at 10:45, but it was wonderful to hear and moderate this panel and get those insights. Thank you, everyone. It is a pleasure for me to hold this up. Back to you, Shikha.
Well, new skills, new ways of working, new security, the IT/OT, and more driving that digital, more of driving that digital mindset, and of course eventually data management. Well, of course, not just surviving but thriving. Soumyadeep, firstly, thank you very much for facilitating the dialogue with the panel. And panel, thank you very, very much. Appreciate you all joining us and sort of reassuring us as to how there is a fundamental shift, the change management that you talked about, that gets ushered in from, say, the retrospective reviews to on-stream real-time interventions in the data management. Well, the hope is, of course, that it will enable continual optimization of process efficiencies. And on that note, of course, inviting the panel to join us to watch the rest of the summit. For now, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you that we'll be shortly back right on the screen with a thought leadership talk. But for now, take a quick tour of the virtual summit setup that's being actually curated for all of you there. So urging all of you to make sure that you do visit the partner booths at the experience zone. Feel absolutely free to explore the partner videos, the brochures, the experiential resources that they have in store for you. You can, of course, book an appointment with the booth representatives there. But yes, please don't forget to fill in the feedback forms at the partner booths as well, because the icing on the cake is the prizes that you could garner, right? Our partners got you interested there as well. So you could take a break, exploring the social wall, the photo booth, courage game. I am yet to explore that, the signature wall, but not for too long, because we will be right back. Keep sharing your perspectives using hashtag ETGDL. I'll see you just in a bit.